I think sometimes I call Ruth the fairy princess of Irish tourism because she can just make things happen.
I think it's really hard to find anybody within the Irish tourism industry who's had a bigger impact than Ruth Andrews has.
We probably wouldn't be where we are today if it hadn't been for her dogged determination.
I remember in those days, probably when I first met her, she was working for Great Southern Hotels, with Eamon McCune, with Terry Brennan, with people like that. I've no idea what they put in the tea in the Great Southern canteen that gave Ruth the elixir of youth that she has enjoyed, while all those of the rest of us have aged probably disgracefully around her.
Yeah, I was overseas with Tourism Ireland for 10 years and Ruth was always this name you heard of, usually speaking an awful lot of sense about what was actually happening overseas.
She seems to see problems before they've emerged, and she also seems to see solutions before any of the rest of us have.
I've known Ruth since she worked with the Doyle Group, so she was with the Doyle Group, then moved on to the Great Southern Hotels. But you know, in all of the negotiations with Ruth while she was in the hotel areas, you know, you always left the room not knowing exactly whether you just got a good deal or not. She would just present everything to you with such, you know, such enthusiasm and passion, and get her own way at the end of it all.
I got to have an understanding of that Ruth has a really deep and broad understanding of Irish tourism and has a real passion for Irish tourism.
Yeah, so first time I met Ruth was about just over 8 years ago. I hadn't met her before. Fiona Cunningham, who runs our office in Dublin, brought me along to meet her for lunch, and we met in the Chop House on the Shelburne Road. Sue Uda, I hadn't met Sue before either. So this was my first encounter with these two ladies, two formidable women, I have to say. And my very first impression was, this is somebody I could do business with.
Right now, Ruth is probably sitting there struggling for what she's going to say, winning this award. And that will probably be the first time in 6 years that Ruth Andrews will be struggling for what she's going to say.
She's helped, if you like, bring tourism from being a Cinderella industry to a real key part of the national and local economy. And I think the tourism industry owes a huge debt of gratitude to Ruth for that.
Ruth came to the ITOA at a very important time for the organisation.
If you look at the role that she's played in terms of her role as Chief Executive of TOA, the creation of Avia, the role she played in the sort of Tourism Recovery Task Force, both in the south of Ireland and the north of Ireland, all of the work that she's done subsequent to that, now a board member of Tourism Ireland. You know, hard to point to anybody who's had a more influential role in the development of the industry over the last decade, for sure.
Ruth is both so knowledgeable, but she's also so generous with her knowledge, and I think that's the thing, is that she knows it all, but she's also happy to share that and debate it and talk about it, and that makes a real difference for people kind of coming up in the industry or people who are just looking for advice. And I think
normally an ITIC chair stays for 2 years, but such was Ruth's sort of influence, and such was the corrosive effect of the pandemic, that Ruth actually stayed on for a further 12 months. And that was a huge bonus for the industry, that we had somebody of Ruth's credentials to actually continue leading us from the crisis that was the pandemic to recovery mode.
And I suppose certainly during COVID, I mean, I don't think anybody could have done what Ruth did. She literally was tireless. She was determined. She was results oriented. I think the industry has a huge amount to thank her for the supports that we got during that period.
She has a very clear understanding of where each of the individual sectors are coming from, and then why together it's important that we have one voice.
She has always been a brilliant, passionate advocate for Irish tourism, and real balanced, common sense, no-nonsense approach.
I've seen her deal with a lot of ministers, and she's very charming, but also very successful at winning the arguments. And I think that's the great style of Ruth, that she's not overly confrontational, and yet she can make her point in a very compelling way that wins the argument. And a case in point was Minister Shane Ross, who a lot of us kind of feel didn't pay due attention to tourism, but then COVID hit, And who did Minister Ross turn to at the start of the COVID crisis? Only to Ruth, and he appointed her chair of the Tourism Recovery Task Force.
I think Ruth's one of the few people who can deliver quite a hard message, disarmingly lightly. Ruth is extraordinarily hard to fall out with.
With all that professionalism, there's just a real warmth with it as well, and that really makes a difference. And I think particularly, to be honest, for women coming into the industry, having Ruth there to look up to really made a difference.
She cares passionately about her members and ITIC. She cares passionately about the Irish tourism industry. She cares passionately about the country that we're all from, but she also cares about people.
So Ruth's also a director on the board of Tourism Ireland, and a great addition to the board in that she's so strategic, she gives great feedback, and she also gives a really great direction, which has been brilliant for the executive.
She has the unique ability to bring together departmental officials, agency people, industry leaders, and actually form a sort of a unified position about something, and that helps win the argument.
Gosh, God, you could pick 100 words to describe Ruth, but what am I going with?
So one word to describe Ruth. Help me out here, Greg. Think of a...
No, I can't do that.
Ruth in one word, very difficult to describe.
One word to describe Ruth.
The go-to person.
Leader.
Iconic.
Tourism.
She has been very influential.
Caring.
Dynamic, if I have to have a word.